all. Today we are going to start with a series of theories of exchange rate. Today, the theory which we would be discussing is purchasing power parity theory. First of all, what is purchasing power parity? It is a popular metric used by macroeconomic analysts that compares different countries' currencies through a basket of goods approach. Purchasing power parity allows for economists to compare economic productivity and standards of living between countries. So some countries they adjust their gross domestic product figures to reflect the purchasing power parity. So in a nutshell, if you want to understand what is purchasing power parity, then look at this diagram where a theoretical exchange rate that allows you to buy the same amount of goods and services in every country. So we would find out a basket of goods that you can purchase anywhere in your country, in United States or in any other country. So the example can be if you want to live inexpensively and you can move to any country in the world, compare prices of a McDonald's Big Mac, right? So government agencies use it to compare the output of countries that use different exchange rates. So if you want to understand what is purchasing power parity, it is economic term for measuring prices at different locations. It is based on the law of one price, which says that if there are no transaction costs nor trade barriers for a particular good, then the price for that good should be the same at every location. Ideally, a computer in New York and in Hong Kong should have the same price, right? But if its price is 500 US dollars in New York and the same computer costs 2000 Hong Kong dollars in Hong Kong, purchasing power parity theory says that exchange rate should be 4 Hong Kong dollars for every 1 US dollar, right? So this is how you can find out the exchange rate. So, poverty, tariffs, and other frictions prevent trading and purchasing of various goods. So, measuring a single good can cause a large error. The purchasing power parity term accounts for this by using a basket of goods, that is, many goods with different quantities. Purchasing power parity then computes an inflation and exchange rate as the ratio of the price of the basket in one location to the prices of the basket in the other location. For example, if a basket consisting of one computer, 1 ton of rice, 1 ton of steel was 1800 US dollars in New York and the same goods cost 10,800 Hong Kong dollars in Hong Kong, what would the purchasing power parity exchange rate? It would be 1 is to 6. So 6 Hong Kong dollars for every 1 US dollar. The name purchasing power parity comes from the idea with the right exchange rate, consumers in every location will have the same purchasing power. The value of purchasing power parity exchange rate is very dependent on the basket of goods chosen. In general, goods are chosen that might closely obey the law of one price. So, ones traded easily and are commonly available in both locations. Organizations that compute purchasing power parity exchange rate use different baskets of goods and can come up with different values. The purchasing power parity exchange rate may not match the market exchange rate. The market rate is more volatile because it reacts to changes in demand at each location. Also, tariffs and difference in the price of labor can contribute to long-term differences between the two rates. One use of purchasing power parity is to predict longer term exchange rates. Now, because purchasing power parity exchange rates are more stable and are less affected by tariffs, they are used for many international comparisons, such as comparing countries, gross domestic products, or other national income statistics. These numbers often come with the label purchasing power parity adjusted. We can wonder that if the purchasing power parity determines exchange rates in the short term. No, they don't. Why? Because there can be market differences between purchasing power adjusted incomes and those converted via market exchange rates. A well known purchasing power adjustment is the Geary Cummings dollar. So, the World Development Indicators 2005 estimated that in 2003, one Geary Cummings dollar was equivalent to about 1.8 Chinese yuan by purchasing power parity, considerably different from the nominal exchange rate. This discrepancy has large implications. For example, when converted via the nominal exchange rates, GDP per capita in India is about uh, 1965 US dollars, while on purchasing power parity basis, it is about 7,197 US dollars. At the other extreme, for instance, Denmark's nominal GDP per capita is around 53,242 US dollars, but its purchasing power parity figure is 46,602 US dollars, in line with the other developed nations. So, there can be a difference in the exchange rates between the calculated or nominal according to the nominal GDP and the purchasing power parity. And also, in the short term, the exchange rate is not determined by purchasing power parity because the basket of goods keeps on fluctuating. Now, let us calculate the purchasing power parity. So, according to relative version of purchasing power parity, it is calculated with S is equal to P1 upon P2, where S is denoted as exchange rate of currency 1 to currency 2. P1 is the cost of good X in currency 1 and P2 is cost of good X in currency 2. So let us say there is a cost of a good, let us say we are talking about any commodity, let's say a car, which costs here in India somewhere around 8 lakh rupees, and in US it is $20,000. So 8 lakh divided by 20,000 will give me the exchange rate of the currency 1 to currency 2 of that commodity, and hence it can be generalized. So it is the purchasing power parity, how much you can purchase in both the countries with the similar amount of money. Then how do we do this conversion? Purchasing power parity exchange rate is used when comparing national production and consumption and other places where the prices of non-traded goods are considered important. Market exchange rates are used for individual goods that are traded. Purchasing power parity rates are more stable over time and can be used when that attribute is important. Purchasing power parity exchange rate helps costing but exclude profits, and above all do not consider the different quality of goods among countries. The same product, for instance, can have a different level of quality and even safety in different countries and may be subject to different taxes and transport costs. Since market exchange rates fluctuate substantially, when the GDP of one country measured in its own currency is converted to the other country's currency using market exchange rates, one country might be inferred to have higher real GDP than the other country in one year but lower in the other. Both of these inferences, um, it's something like both these inferences would fail to reflect the reality of their relative levels of production. But if one country's gross domestic product is converted into the other country's currency using purchasing power parity exchange rates instead of observed market exchange rates, the false inference will not occur. Essentially, gross domestic product measured at purchasing power parity controls for the different costs of living and price levels, using relative to the United States dollar, enabling a more accurate estimate of a nation's level of production. The exchange rate reflects transaction values for traded goods between countries in contrast to non traded goods, that is, goods produced for home country use. Also, currencies are traded for purposes other than trade in goods and services. There can be an example of, let's say, buying capital assets whose prices vary more than those of physical goods. Also, different interest rates, speculation, hedging, or intervention by central banks can influence the foreign exchange market. The purchasing power parity method is used as an alternative to correct for possible statistical bias. The Penn-World table is a widely cited source of purchasing power parity adjustments, and the associated Penn effect reflects such a systematic bias in using exchange rates to outputs among other countries. For example, if the value of Mexican peso falls by half compared to the US dollar, the Mexican gross domestic product measured in dollars will also halve. However, this exchange rate results from international trade and financial markets. It does not necessarily mean that Mexicans are poorer by a half. If incomes and prices measured in pesos stay the same, they will be no worse off, assuming that imported goods are not essential to the quality of life of individuals. Measuring income in different countries using PPP or purchasing power parity exchange rates helps to avoid this problem. Why? Because as the matrix gives understanding of relative wealth regarding local goods and services at domestic markets. On the other hand, it is poor for measuring relative costs of goods and services at international markets. The reason is it does not take into account how much one US dollar stands for in a respective country. Now, using this example, at an international market, Mexicans can buy less than Americans after the fall of their currency, though their gross domestic product purchasing power parity changed a little. Now, how to compare nations' purchasing power parity? To make a meaningful comparison of prices across countries, a wide range of goods and services must be considered. However, this one to one comparison is difficult to achieve due to the sheer amount of data that must be collected and the complexity of the comparisons that must be drawn. To help facilitate this comparison, the University of Pennsylvania and the United Nations joined forces to establish the International Comparison Program in 1968. Now, with this program, the purchasing power parities generated by ICP have a basis from a worldwide price survey that compares the prices of hundreds of various goods and services. The program helps international macroeconomists estimate global productivity and growth. Every few years, the World Bank releases a report that compares the productivity and growth of various countries in terms of purchasing power parity and United States dollars. Both the International Monetary Fund and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development use based on purchasing power parity metrics to make predictions and recommend economic policy. The recommended economic policies can have an immediate short term impact on the financial markets. Also, some foreign exchange traders use purchasing power parity to find potentially overvalued or undervalued currencies. Investors who hold stock or bonds of foreign companies may use the survey's purchasing power parity figures to predict the impact of exchange rate fluctuations on a country's economy and thus impact on their investment. How to pair purchasing power parity with gross domestic product? In contemporary microeconomics, gross domestic product is what? It is the total monetary value of the goods and services produced within one country. So, nominal gross domestic product calculates the monetary value in current absolute terms. Real GDP adjusts the nominal gross domestic product for inflation. However, some accounting goes even further, adjusting GDP for the purchasing power parity value. This adjustment attempts to convert nominal GDP into a number more easily comparable between countries with different currencies. To better understand how GDP paired with purchasing power parity works, suppose it costs $10 to buy a shirt in United States and it costs £8 to buy an identical shirt in Germany. To make an apples to apple comparison, we must first convert the €8 into US dollars. If the exchange rate was such that the shirt in Germany costs $15, the purchasing power parity would have been 15 upon 10 or 1.5. In other words, for every $1 spent on the shirt in United States, it takes $1.5 to obtain the same shirt in Germany, buying it with the euro. What are the drawbacks of purchasing power parity? Since 1986, The Economist has playfully tracked the price of McDonald's Corporation Big Mac hamburger across many countries. Their study results in the famed Big Mac Index. In Burgernomics, a prominent 2003 paper that explores the Big Mac Index and purchasing power parity, authors Michael R. Paco and Patricia Espollard cited the following factors to explain why the purchasing power parity theory is not a good reflection of reality. The first one being the transport costs. Goods that are unavailable locally must be imported, resulting in transport costs. Now, these costs include not only fuel but import duties as well. So, imported goods will consequently sell at a relatively higher price than do identically locally sourced goods. The next point is tax differences. So, government sales tax, such as value added tax, can spike in one country relative to another. The third point is government intervention. Tariffs can dramatically augment the price of imported goods, where the same products in other countries will be comparatively cheaper. Non traded services. So, the Big Mac's price factors input costs that are not traded. So, these factors include uh, the items such as insurance, utility costs, and labor costs as well. Therefore, those expenses are unlikely to be at parity internationally. Then there is market competition. Goods might be deliberately priced higher in a country. So, in some cases, higher prices are because of a company may have a competitive advantage over other sellers. The company may have a monopoly, right, or be part of cartel of companies that manipulate prices, keeping them artificially high. Then, how to predict exchange rate? Purchasing power parity exchange rates are never valued. And why is that so? It is so because market exchange rates tends to move in their general direction over a period of years. There is some value to knowing in which direction the exchange rate is more likely to shift over the long run. In neoclassical economic theory, the purchasing power parity theory assumes that exchange rate between two countries or currencies actually observed in the foreign exchange market is the one that is used in the purchasing power parity comparisons, so that the same amount of goods could actually be purchased in either currency with the same beginning amount of funds. Depending on the particular theory, purchasing power parity is assumed to hold either in the long run or more strongly in the short run. Theories that invoke purchasing power parity assume that in some circumstances, a fall in either currency's purchasing power, a rise in its price level, would lead to a proportional decrease in that currency's valuation on the foreign exchange market. So, identifying manipulations. Purchasing power parity exchange rates are especially useful when official exchange rates are artificially manipulated by the governments. Countries with strong government control of the economy sometimes enforce official exchange rates that make their own currency artificially strong. By contrast, the currency's black market exchange rate is artificially weak. In such cases, a purchasing power parity exchange rate is likely the most realistic basis for economic comparison. Similarly, when exchange rates deviate significantly from their long term equilibrium due to speculative attacks or carry trade, a purchasing power parity exchange rate offers a better alternative for comparison. In 2011, the Big Mac index was used to identify manipulation of inflation numbers by Argentina. Argentina responded by manipulating the Big Mac index. Now, what are the issues with purchasing power parity theory? So, the purchasing power parity exchange rate calculation is controversial because of the difficulties of finding comparable basket of goods to compare purchasing power across countries. Estimation of purchasing power parity is complicated by the fact that countries do not simply differ in uniform price level. In fact, the difference in food prices may be greater than the difference in the housing prices, while also less than the difference in entertainment prices. So people in different countries typically consume different basket of goods, and it is necessary to compare the cost of basket of goods and services using a price index. So this is a difficult task because purchasing patterns and even the goods available to purchase differ across countries. Thus, it is necessary to make adjustments for differences in the quality of goods and services. Furthermore, the basket of goods representative of one economy will vary from that of the other. Americans eat more bread, Chinese eat more rice, hence a purchasing power parity calculated using the US consumption as a base will differ from the calculated one using China as base. So additional statistical difficulties arise with multivariable or multilateral comparisons when it is not usually the case and more than two countries are to be compared. Various ways of averaging bilateral purchasing power parities can provide a more stable multilateral comparison, but at the cost of distorting bilateral ones. So these are all general issues of indexing. As with other price indices, there is no way to reduce complexity to a single number that is equally satisfying for all purposes. Nevertheless, purchasing power parities are typically robust in the face of the many problems that arise in using market exchange rates to make comparisons. For example, in 2005, the price of a gallon of gasoline in Saudi Arabia was 0.91 US dollars, and in Norway the price was 6.27 US dollars. The significant differences in price would not contribute to accuracy in purchasing power parity analysis. Despite all these variables that contribute to the significant differences in prices, more comparisons have to be made and used as variable in the overall formulation of purchasing power parity. When PPP, purchasing power parity comparisons, are to be made over some interval of time, proper account needs to be made of inflationary effects. In addition to the methodological issues presented by the selection of basket of goods, purchasing power parity estimates can also vary based on statistical capacity of participating countries. The international comparison program, which purchasing power parity estimates are based on, require the disaggregation of national accounts into the production, expenditure, or income, and not all participating countries routinely disaggregate their data into such categories. Some aspects of purchasing power parity comparisons are theoretically impossible or unclear. For example, there is no basis for comparison between Ethiopian laborer who lives on teff with the Thai laborer who lives on rice, because teff is not commercially available in Thailand and rice is not in Ethiopia. So the price of rice in Ethiopia or teff in Thailand cannot be determined. As a general rule, the more similar the price structure between countries, the more valid the purchasing power parity theory is. So the purchasing power parity levels will also vary based on the formula used to calculate price matrices. So possible formulas include GEKS, Fisher, Geary, Cummings, IDB, and the superlative method. Each has their own advantages and disadvantages. So liking regions present another methodological difficulty. In 2005, ICP round regions were compared by using a list of some 1,000 identical items for which a price could be found for 18 countries. Selected, at least 2 countries would be in each region. While this was superior to earlier bridging methods, which do not fully take into account differing quality between goods, it may serve to be overstate the purchasing power parity basis of poor countries, because the price indexing on which purchasing power parity is based will assign to poorer countries the greater weight of goods consumed in greater shares in richer countries. So there are a number of reasons that different measures do not perfectly reflect standards of living. So there are trade barriers and non-tradables. The law of one price, the underlying mechanism behind purchasing power parity, is weakened by transport costs and government trade restrictions, which make it expensive to move goods between markets located in different countries. Transport costs sever the link between exchange rates and the price of goods implied by the law of one price. As the transport cost increases, the larger the range of exchange rate fluctuations. The same is true for official trade restrictions, because the customs fee affect importers' profits in the same way as shipping fee. According to Krugman and Obstfeld, either type of trade impediment weakens the basis of purchasing power parity by allowing the purchasing power of a given currency to differ more widely from country to country. So they cite the that now the linkages between national price levels are also weakened when trade barriers and imperfectly competitive market structures occur together. Pricing to market occurs when a firm sells the same product for different prices in different markets. This is a reflection of inter-country differences in conditions on both the demand side and supply side. So, with the prospective entrance product features, few suppliers or instead is already near saturation. So, according to Krugman and Obstfeld, this occurrence of products differentiation in segmented market results in violations of law of one price and absolute purchasing power parity. Over time, shifts in market structure and demand will occur, which may invalidate the relative purchasing power parity. What are the differences in the price level measurements? So measurement of price levels differ from country to country because inflation rate is different in different countries, because exchange rate keeps changing and do not offset official measures of inflation differences, and because it makes prediction about price changes rather than price levels. Relative purchasing power parity is still a useful concept. However, change in the relative prices of basket components can cause relative purchasing power parity to fail tests that are based on official price indexes. These are the references. Thank you for listening.